and it's good to see you. We are finishing up a point that I started with getting organized, your personal organization, and I ended with point number 7, which was when you work, work. Let's look at point number 8, seize small units of time. Throughout the day, you have 15-minute period of time, 10-minute period of time. Sometimes you have a half hour. Maybe you come home before supper, or maybe before a class, or you're just waiting for the next activity. If you will seize these little periods of time, it's amazing how much you can accomplish. Getting phone calls returned, maybe doing an assignment, getting something prepared. That's why I always carry a book with me. Very often, I'll get to a restaurant and someone will be 15, 20 minutes late. And then you're not aggravated. You have your work with you, you get something done. Over a period of a month, a year, you can accomplish a lot. For example, just in a 15-minute, 20-minute period of time before going to bed, for about 4 or 5 years, I used that period of time. I couldn't sleep right away, just to sort of unwind. And I worked through all the major and minor prophets with one of the best of all commentaries on each of those books. And it took a period of time, but I was able to accomplish that. So if you will just seize that little bit of time and not just waste it, you will be able to get a lot of your jobs done, particularly if you have to return phone calls. Number 9, don't procrastinate. Procrastinators frustrate people, and they actually cause fights in churches, and it's very frustrating to your friends, and if you're married, it's very frustrating to your spouse. Now, I have already commented on this, so I will not comment again. Number 10, do your most important tasks first. Some have defined discipline as doing what you need to do first, even if you don't feel like doing it. So often we don't feel like doing our homework assignment. We don't feel like going to work. We don't feel like making phone calls. We don't feel like doing this assignment. Well, if you live your life on feelings, you're going to be in real trouble. So I've always practiced, what is it that I have to do? Do it first. What's the most urgent thing? Do it first. Get it out of the way. So for example, in my life, if I have a sermon on Sunday, I do not wait till Saturday. I do not wait till Friday. I start Monday morning, and I give the whole day to it. The reason I do this is for several reasons. One is preparing a sermon for Sunday morning is a lot of hard work. It's not easy. You have to do a lot of reading, a lot of thinking, a lot of organizing. And if you start it at the beginning of the week, the amazing thing is your brain works on it all week. So by the time Saturday comes, my mind has had 5 days, 6 days to work on a sermon, and it has done its work of incubation and organizing and systematizing. And sometimes I'll wake up at night and I'll think of a great thought of how to reorganize this sermon or a good illustration. So it puts the material in your head early in the week. Your brain works on it all week. People who do their assignments the last minute really are not very creative, and they're not doing their best. So I want to recommend, if you have a paper to do, if you have a big assignment to do, jump on it early in the week. That way you can have Saturdays off or Friday night free, and you can have it free without guilt. Don't procrastinate. Don't be part of the put it off crowd. Just put it off to the last minute, and then you do very, very poor work. So whatever you have to do that's of priority, do it early and do it on time. Number 11, follow through with your responsibilities. Again, I've commented on this. It's so important that when you have been given a job, you're a part of a program in the church, whether it's the Awana program or Sunday school program, and you have to call some people, or you have to prepare some kind of lesson, do some kind of training, that you follow through and don't just let things slide and let people have to remind you 10 times. Sometimes this gets ridiculous. For example, every year we run cars down to our camp, and we tell people, let us know if your children are going to camp. We have rides there. We have a van to go to camp. If we need to get a bus, we'll get a bus. Let us know. We tell people this all summer. Guess what happens? Saturday night late, people will call, do you have anyone going to camp? Now, we're kind Christians and we don't want to hurt them, but isn't it ridiculous? We have been announcing this all summer, and Saturday night we're supposed to scramble at the last minute to get their kids to camp. When we've asked and asked and asked, just call us. Let us know. We'll take care of everything from that point. People can't remember to call but the last minute. We even have people on Sunday morning go, is there anyone going to camp today? Now, of course, we do this year after year. They ought to know by now. It's amazing to me how utterly irresponsible people are. It's like you have to treat them like little children. We ask people to call in on things, to let us know if they're going to be at activities, and they just can't remember anything. And that's why I've said to you, learn to write things down. So if someone says to you, we are asking, are you going to come to this activity? Let us know. Let them know right away. Write it down that you have to let them know. In the very early years of our church, we didn't have a bulletin. And several of us would get so many phone calls. Is there a Saturday night meeting? Are you having a special speaker? And what time is this event on Wednesday night? So we got tired of people just calling and calling us for every little thing. And so finally we wanted a bulletin. Some people in the church did not want a bulletin for various reasons. So finally we said, that's okay, we won't have a bulletin, but we want to let your number out to the congregation that people will call you, and if people call us, we'll have them call. Oh, no, I don't have time for that. Okay, we're going to have a bulletin, and we're going to put everything in the bulletin. Now, of course, we put all the announcements in the bulletin, we put the times in the bulletin. People still call. Oh, I can't find my bulletin. Sometimes I feel I'm dealing with little children. So I'm saying to you, learn to take responsibility, welcome responsibility, follow through with your responsibility, and learn to write down things that need to be done. Take it as a challenge. Number 12, don't be a slave to the phone. A whole new world has opened up with the phone. 10 years ago, none of you here would have had a cell phone. Only the rich, only big businessmen carried around cell phones. And they weren't cell phones. They were big, giant things like this. They looked like they came from outer space. Now, nearly everyone has a cell phone. And people will be on their cell phone many hours a day. In fact, in Japan, I just heard that they asked the young people to take 1 day a month off from their cell phone because they realize how many people are getting addicted to the cell phone. I saw this young lady riding a bike in the park. A racing bike, and she was leaning way down, holding her racing bike, going very, very quickly, and here she was with her hand on her cell phone. I thought, all I could see is her hitting some bump or some tree, and off she would go into outer space. With her cell phone, of course. Cell phones actually become addictive. Our email can become addictive. And we get very little done. Remember what I said to you yesterday? When you work, work. When you work, turn your cell phone off. When you work, turn your emails off. In fact, it's a good practice that when you are actually working, don't look at your email when the little sound comes through that you have mail. You don't have to look at every piece of mail. And you do not have to answer every phone call. Did you know that? You have answering machines. Let the answering machine care for that. In fact, studies have shown that people are less effective who think they have to answer the phone every time it rings or catch each email that comes in. It ruins our creativity, and it ruins our thinking time, and it ruins our work time. And we're finding that multitasking really hurts people's true work. So in the morning, when I'm doing my study or my writing, I'll check my email right away in the morning after I do my devotion just to see if there's an emergency email, and then I don't even touch it till after lunch. And the reason is that has to be brought under control. If you're going to get your homework done, if you're going to get your assignments done, if you have work to do, you need to do that work. Do it with all your strength and all your might and all the brain power God has given you, and with creativity. And for that, you need uninterrupted time. Very few of us have uninterrupted time anymore. So this is something you're going to have to deal with because we live in a world of distractions, and we live in a world of noise. And people have at us now like they've never had access before. It's an amazing new world. And if you don't take control of technology, it basically will rule your life. So I'm saying right now, get a hold of this technology. You bring it under control. You use it for the Lord. Now, the phone is a wonderful thing. You can do many good pastoral things with the phone. I make many phone calls in a day, check on people. I can't get to every hospital visit. We get from our church administrator, I just got it now in my email, I checked before I came in here, And we'll get every week a list of people going in and out of the hospital, or emergencies, or new tragedies, or whatever the problem is. But he'll give us phone numbers. And so we can't personally see each of these people, but we can pick up the phone and just quickly call and say, I'm sorry to hear this. I'll pray for you. Is there anything you want us to know? And people really appreciate that. So in pastoral care, I'll talk about this briefly in just a moment, the phone is a powerful, powerful tool to just keep up with people and let them know you love them and you care for them and you're thinking about them. But you've got to bring it under control, or you'll get very little done. You'll have a life of frustration and constant interruptions. So do not be a slave to the phone. Take control of the phone. Take control of your email. Take control of all the distractions. If you cannot get into a place that is free from distractions, then go to a place like a library that other people don't know you're there and go for 2 hours. Go for 3 hours. It's amazing what you will do if you are uninterrupted. So you need to do this. This is your responsibility. Don't just write this down as a note. Implement this in your life. I hope you'll all write to me about this and let me know how you're going to implement dealing with distractions and the modern technologies that just are constantly intruding in a very unhealthy way into our lives. I was visiting my dad in New Jersey, and in the middle of the afternoon I ran to a gym that's right by his house, and I was on one of the machines there, and right next to me a man came and he was on the machine, and so I introduced myself and we started talking, and he found out he was a lawyer. So I said to him, tell me your biggest problem as a lawyer. And this was in the state of New Jersey. Oh, he just started to groan. He said, people have access to me day and night, and they expect that I'm going to answer immediately every phone call. He says, I can't go to my kids' games. I can't have any privacy. People expect instant access to me. He says, it's just terrible. And they get mad at me if I don't get the phone immediately, if I'm not back to them immediately. Now, my dear friends, 30 years ago, that did not exist. I see with my son-in-laws, they can hardly take a vacation and get away from their computer and their work. And the company is always after them. They say, oh, take a vacation, but you got to be online. You better be checking in every hour. And the day where a person could have a 2-week vacation for many people is gone. We're connected. We're connected to the world. So in spiritual matters, this is very important. It takes time to learn the things of God. If you look at this Bible, this is a big book. Those are thin pages, by the way. Your job in life is to master this book. How can you master it in a world of distractions and interruptions? You need concentrated time in the Word of God and for prayer. So this is a war, a battle you're going to have to face, and it's only going to get worse. Who knows what new technology they have? Maybe they'll just put a phone directly into your head, and you will have to answer that day and night. Don't let them do it. Don't let them drill holes into your head, okay? This is a true story. I'm not making this up. My wife has had a lifetime of headaches. And so she comes back from the doctor one day, and she says, they would like to do an experiment on me and drill a hole into the back of my head and put a wire in there. I said, honey, no one's drilling holes into the back of your head. They found out later this didn't work. So don't let anyone drill holes into your head or put phones in your head. Enough things going through our head. We'll probably have eyeglasses with TVs in them. Please take control of technology. Use it for the Lord. Don't let it abuse you. Number 13. I'll just mention it. We'll come back to it. Delegate, delegate, delegate. In a very busy world, a world of multitasking, and too much to do, you have to learn to delegate. Acts 6 is an example of it. We'll talk about it later. All right, number 14. You probably think I want you to become a workaholic. Well, 14 says plan for rest, exercise, and family. Have you ever seen the schedule of the President of the United States? In his schedule, was in U.S. News and World Report, his schedule gives him rest every day. He has a time to get a nap. Exercise every day. And they have for the President Camp David, which I'd love to visit. It's supposed to be very beautiful. That the President goes there on the weekend for rest. They know the President needs rest. We know that people who have very difficult jobs need downtime. And actually, on downtime, your mind is working and doing some of its most creative work. You do need rest. God is not trying to kill you. He's not trying to ruin your life. We try to ruin it ourselves. God wants you to have rest. He gives His people rest. And He wants you to be with your family, and He wants you to have human relationships and enjoy them and to be with one another. So, if you're a student and you have a job, maybe you even have a family, you are going to have to work and plan into your life time to be with them, time to have relaxation, time to exercise your body, and time for normality or humanity. So often we've become machines in this very busy world. So when you get your daytimer out and you have your once a week planning with your family, plan time that you can have a date together and have free time together and a great hike together and just some enjoyment in life. And that's good for you. It's good for your spiritual life and it's good for your physical life. You can't just work day and night. If you look in the Old Testament, look at all the holidays and festivals that God gave His people. And these were joyous times where the whole family would go to Jerusalem and they would be together for several weeks. And God promised them that if they left their farms and they left their land, He would take care of it while they were gone. It's interesting, the children of Israel very rarely carried out these beautiful feasts that He had given them, or the year of Jubilee. There's actually no record they ever carried out the year of Jubilee. God was planning rest and Sabbath so that they could enjoy each other, enjoy the Lord, and enjoy life as He had given it to them. Number 15, pray about your over-busyness and schedule. This is something you will have to pray about. You'll have to pray about life. You'll have to pray about the control of it and who has control of it, and about your weaknesses and areas that need change. We have the Holy Spirit within us. It's tremendous power, third person of the Trinity, living inside of us. It's an amazing thing if you think about it. The Bible says He lives in us. It's the newness of life. So you pray about self-discipline. You pray about overscheduling, overburdened life, about time to be with the Lord in quietness and alone. Pray about your ministry, that you'll be a responsible servant, faithful in little things. Bring these things to the Lord. Now I want to say to you, when you pray about these things, it means a lifetime of prayer. It's not something you pray about once and it's over. It's a lifetime of praying that God will help you be effective for Him. If you're going to serve the Lord, then at least be effective in what you're doing, not frustrated in what you're doing. Number 16, our last point, learn to say no. I want you to practice that with me right now. When I say no, you say it with me. No. You don't sound enthusiastic. Let's try it again. No. One more time. No. Okay, good. That's a little better. You have to learn to say no. You cannot do everything. You are not the Messiah. Some of you might think you're the Messiah. You say yes to everything. You have to say no. I just cannot do that. I have enough responsibilities right now. Now, some of you need to say yes to more responsibilities. You said no too much. But for most people I find today, particularly those in leadership, they need to say no. They need to say, I've got a responsibility. Now, what I do have, I want to do well. So if you're an Awana leader, maybe you're the Sunday school superintendent, or maybe you have Bible studies you run, or maybe you're a missionary coordinator, maybe you're a missionary. You have to focus. You have to focus on what God has given you to do it with all your heart and mind, and do it with quality and excellence. And that means saying no to other things. One of my problems is I like to do so many things. I have so many goals in life, and I've had to come to realize I can't do them all. Not in this lifetime. When I'm in heaven, I'll do the things I've wanted to do here on earth. So I've just learned I'm not going to do it all. Focus on what God has given me to do. Try to do my best in that area, and I have to say no to many other things. Now, there's a secular book. It's not a Christian book, and the name of the book is this, Getting Things Done. Getting Things Done by David Allen. It's a Penguin book. I recommend it to you as a very practical guide to the busyness of life and to learning how to get things done and not frustrate people. Now, one more point about getting organized. most activities in a church are run by a committee. And that's good because we're a brotherhood and sisterhood. Eldership is a council. A deaconship, the diaconate, is a council. Usually churches have different kinds of committees in which they accomplish something. Since the church is to be led by a plurality of leaders, it's good that most major ministries in church are led by a council, by a group. So I want to say this to you. If you are on a committee or a board or a council, I want to tell you that is important. And it's important that the council that you're on or committee you're on is well run. Because the ministry that that council represents will be affected by the quality of those meetings. I'm saying to you, meetings are important. Many people hate meetings, absolutely abhor them. So, rather than abhor them, change them. Make them effective. Make them very profitable. Make them joyful. Make them something that you find very fruitful, productive. And if they're not productive and fruitful, you say, we need to improve this meeting. You will find in life you will have to be on different committees to accomplish things. Leadership committees. Take your place in those committees very, very seriously. Pay attention. Volunteer for things in the committee. Be an active participant in the committee. I've written a whole book on this called Meetings That Work. You can apply it to any meeting, although I wrote it for elders. And I wrote it because I heard many elders complain about their meetings. A waste of time, trivialized meetings. They don't get to the real issues. Time wasting, frustrating. Doesn't have to be that way. So you be a change agent for meetings. In fact, if you get on a committee, ask the first question, how is this run? Is it run effectively, or is it just another thing to do? Now, look back at your outline, and we have D in your outline, be checking attitudes. Be checking attitudes. Now, I had a long, long discourse on that one part, get organized. Get organized. But our main point is skill in organization and management. Sorry for taking so long on that one point, but that one point is the key to whatever else I say to you. If you're not an organized person or a disciplined person, you're just not going to get much done in life. You're going to be ineffective. You'll do things for the Lord, but you won't do them with excellence and you won't be effective. You'll probably frustrate the tar out of people. So we're coming all the way back to our notes now to letter D, be checking attitudes. This is dealing with people now, dealing with organizing and managing whatever ministry you have. Lawrence Sandy was the head of the Navigators International for many years, took over after Dawson Trotman died, Schroon Lake, New York, died in an accident where he was trying to save someone's life and drowned himself. And at a conference with Lawrence Sandy, he was asked, as the head of the Navigators International, what's your most important job? I was very intrigued by his answer. He said, my most important job is checking attitudes. Now here's the leader of a big organization, checking attitudes. So maybe you're a leader of an organization, program, a ministry. One of your jobs is to check the attitudes. So let's say you're an elder in a church. What are the attitudes in the church? What are the attitudes of the other elders? Is it a prideful, self-righteous attitude in the church? Critical, angry? Some Christians look like they've been baptized in lemon juice, weaned on a dill pickle. Reminds me of the fellow who said he's a black belt Baptist. I said, what's a black belt Baptist? Baptist and mad about it. Are you with an angry group of people, critical group, cold and selfish, fighting church, friendly, encouraging, caring, concerned, welcoming, excited church, church with world vision, evangelistic zeal? The question I'm asking is, what's the culture? What's the atmosphere of the group that you lead? As a leader, you need to check those attitudes. And you need to be a change agent to make sure you have the right Christian biblical attitudes. I've been to churches that are as cold, as unfriendly as you can possibly imagine. I remember I was in one church, and after I got done speaking, I was going to go to the back door, which I normally do, to greet people and talk to people. And on the way back, someone stopped me and talked to me. Couldn't have been more than a minute. And so how long would it take to get to the back of the church? 30 seconds? 30 seconds, and maybe someone stops you, so maybe a minute, 2 minutes the most. Get to the back of the church. I got to the back of the church, and within 1 to 2 minutes, 80% of the church was gone. Gone. And within another 2 or 3 minutes, there was just 1 or 2 people with me, and they were gone. Now, in our church, we have to plead with them an hour later, please leave the church so we can lock up. It's a cold, unfriendly church. They were putting in their time. But of course, they had to get home and eat. They were very hungry, and their blood sugar was dropping, and so they just had to get going. Some churches are uncaring. They don't even know what's going on in their own midst. See, leaders check those attitudes, and they seek to change those attitudes. What attitudes do you want in the church? That is the job of a leader. E in your outline. Be proactive and deliberate. Be proactive and deliberate. These are right on your notes. You don't need to write this down. Just watch your notes. Don't always be 5 steps behind the times and the problems of the church. Get in front of them, one person says. Be proactive, be deliberate in what you do. Plan for the future. Decide what you're going to do. Even in elders' meetings, be proactive. Deacons' meetings, whatever committee you're in, be proactive. You decide what you're going to discuss in the next 6 months. You decide what needs to be addressed. Address those issues. Articulate to people who you are, where you're going, and what you value. The elders need to be about the great business of the church's beliefs and missions, to define and clarify and state and continually restate the foundational, non-negotiable beliefs of the church and direction of the church. So many churches are always behind. They just really don't have any direction at all. They're not deliberate or proactive about anything. Church I was raised in as a young person, I noticed one time in our songbook, we sing the same 25 hymns. Now, we had a songbook of almost 400 hymns. But the song leader would come in 5 or 6 minutes before, rush to the front, talk to the pianist, look through the book, pick a couple hymns, and then we'd sing a couple hymns, and then the speaker would come on. Well, why did we sing the same 25 hymns over many years? Why? Well, that's the ones he knew. We didn't even learn our own hymn book. Didn't even learn new songs. Never remember ever learning a new song. We just sang the same old, same old. And some of them were great songs, but you sang them so much, it's like eating chicken all the time. After a while, you get tired of chicken. I remember once in my life getting tired of chicken. Didn't eat chicken for a year or two because we had so much chicken, I was chickened out. Well, we sang certain songs so many times that I just couldn't sing them anymore. In fact, I have a bad taste in my mouth for them now, although they're great songs. See, no one was proactive. No one ever sat down and actually thought, why don't we learn some new songs in our psalm book? Or why don't we sing some of our old songs in a different way? Why don't we actually get some instruments up here rather than the same old piano, and get some other people involved and do a little planning? There was no sense of being deliberate, no sense of planning or trying some new things, organizing some of the people into music. In fact, there were people with music talent that just sat there. We basically squandered the musical talent of anyone who had any talent or singing. It's good for a church, good for an organization to learn to be ahead of the game, ahead of the problems, ahead of the people, and be thinking ahead. F in your outline. Be a delegator. Be a delegator. I read this article just recently. Actually, I read it, and then I actually met the man who wrote this down. And he said he had become a new elder in his church. And the first elders meeting, they spent a full 45 minutes discussing what watt light bulb to use in the basement. He said, I knew we were in serious trouble. He said, I decided right there in that meeting, I'm either going to change this meeting or I'm getting out of here. This is the most ridiculous thing. Now, first of all, why the elders were dealing with the wattage in light bulbs, I don't know. But let's say they had to deal with it. They could discard that in about 30 seconds by saying, let's find someone in the congregation who could decide on the wattage of the light bulbs we want to use. And we'll let them take care of it. So maybe that would take 2 minutes. 45 minutes discussing. Now actually I can tell you the psychology of what was going on there. What was going on there is they actually did not want to discuss real issues. It's a great way to divert from problems and tensions, because often in committee meetings there are tensions between people and issues and problems. And so you can divert those tensions by trivializing the discussion into something that everyone can handle. The wattage of a light bulb. That was a little difficult though, because there was this choice between 75 and 60. And would they save money? Would it be matter if they saved money on a 75 watt? And then of course someone got the whole thing all mixed up by saying we should use a 100 watt light bulb for safety. And that of course really threw the group into confusion. See, they were really denying themselves the privilege of getting to the real pastoral issues of the church, the real ministry of the work, by just dealing with non-issues. The more you can delegate, the more you can accomplish. The elders need to prod, leaders need to prod, equip, protect, mobilize, approve, lead people to do things. Now, there's a wonderful biblical example of this in Acts chapter 6. In Acts chapter 6, verse 1, there was a conflict between the widows. You see, there were widows of the land. These were Hebrew-speaking widows who lived there in Jerusalem, and they were getting more money and more food. And there were Hellenistic widows of Greek origin and of the Greek language, and they probably didn't have the same heritage in the city or friendship network. And so, consequently, some widows were getting more money, some widows were getting less money, and they started fighting, and there was complaining in the church. Now, I want you to notice what happens in the Acts 6 account, because it's a great lesson in leadership. The apostles are distributing the money. They are preaching the gospel, but they're distributing, collecting and distributing the money. This became burdensome, and they were overworked. So when they hear of this complaint, they don't go in defensive mode. So many leaders spend their whole life defending themselves. Don't even waste an ounce on that. When people complain about you, listen carefully and say, thank you for taking the time to do that. Many times people are right. If they're not right, then you can always just push that away and not deal with it. But most times there's some measure of truth to it. I want to remind you that if you are a leader, you are a target, and you are going to have to be a problem solver. That means people come to you with their complaints. It's just a job. As Chuck Swindoll says, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. It's part of leadership. It's part of the job to listen to complaints and criticisms. You just need to relax. Listen to them. If they're legitimate, say thank you. I'll try to improve that. Maybe you could help me. The apostles do not go into the defensive mode. They don't say, we're overworked, we've got so much to do, and now all you do is complain. Leave us alone. No, what they do is come up with a plan immediately. And they come up with a plan how to solve this problem of unfairness. And the plan includes taking it to the congregation, presenting the plan to the congregation, giving participation on the part of the congregation, letting them have their voice, letting them be involved, and they say, you pick the congregation 7 men. Here are the qualifications. You pick them. We will set them aside and lay hands on them, and we will delegate to them the work of feeding, collecting the money, and feeding the widows. What a great thing. We, Acts 6:4, very important verse for all elders and all key leaders in the church. We will devote ourselves to prayer and the ministry of the Word of God. There's the priorities once and for all laid down. So they delegate all this work to a group of 7 people so they can concentrate and focus on the main job that Christ had given them, ministry of the Word. Now the same thing happens in any church or any organization that you're involved with or any committee. There will be too much to do. In many cases, you cannot do all that needs to be done. And you can always do more and you can always improve. So you've got to delegate. All great leaders have been great delegators. They know how to find good people and they know how to put them to work. If you have to do everything, you're going to get little done. You're going to frustrate yourself and frustrate a lot of people around you. And you may be in control, but you're not going to accomplish much. I want to say to you this evening, learn to be a master delegator. Start young. Learn to ask people, can you help? Could you possibly do this? I have too much to do now. Could you take this responsibility? Now, when you delegate, you have a job to do. Now, let's look back at our Acts 6 passage, and I want to show you some good principles here from Acts 6. First, they identified what needed to be done, made it very clear to the 7. They selected the right people. They laid down the qualifications of who could do this job. It wasn't just anybody, pick your friends. They laid some pretty strict guidelines down for the right people. Then they tell the people what is expected of them. You will collect money, you will feed the widows. Now, there have been many guesses as why to 7. Why did they pick 7? I'm going to take a guess. It's all it can be is a guess. Maybe it was one for each day, so they wouldn't be worn out, because they had other jobs to do too, these men. Stephen was a preacher. Most of these people would have had jobs. And so each one a day would have a specific responsibility to be, as you might say, on call. They had their cell phones on all day. Tell the people what's expected of them. Then give the people the proper authority, accountability, and ownership to make the job fulfilling. They handed that job over to them. That's why they laid hands on them. They put their hands on them. And by putting their hands on them, they delegated the authority and responsibility to them. They were in charge now. Sometimes people give you a job and then they keep interfering. They even do it for you at times. That really makes people angry. If you give people a job, you give them a responsibility, you explain what the responsibility is, you give them the authority, get out of the way. Let them do it. If they're not doing it right, don't do it for them. Come back, meet with them, take them to lunch, and just say, how can we sharpen this up a little bit? Lastly, let people know that they are appreciated and needed. Now, let me go over those points again. Identify what needs to be done, select the right people, tell the people what's expected of them, give them the proper authority and accountability and ownership of the job, and let people know they're appreciated. That's what we see in Acts chapter 6. You see, you have to know how to delegate. Delegation takes work. Every time you delegate something, that means work for you. But in the end, it will be less work for you and less frustration when they start being effective in what they're doing. G. And this point is a very important point. Be practitioners of regular self-evaluation. I cannot emphasize this point enough. In our church, this is a culture we have developed in every level of the church, starting with the elders. Whatever we do, we evaluate it after. So, for example, we have a Christmas program. It's an outreach program. It's a Sunday, it's usually Christmas Eve. And we want people to invite non-Christians and neighbors and relatives to a lovely evening of music, and there will be a 15-minute gospel presentation. We use the music to draw people in. And we set the whole thing for non-Christians. So we have this every year. We've had it for about 30 years. It's a great outreach. We'll have lots of non-Christians there. Same with Easter. Now, after every Christmas program, even though we've done it for 30 years, we as a group of elders evaluate it. How did it go this year? What did we do wrong? What did we do right? How do we get more people in there? What did we do to block getting people there? How can we get our people to really bring more non-Christian people? We evaluate, and then we write down our evaluation, put it in a file folder every year, and so the next year, before it's all being planned, pull that file folder out, and we remind ourselves of the changes we want to make. We do that in every baptism. Every baptism is a tremendous evangelistic opportunity because we want those people to invite all their unsaved people to the baptism. So we're prepared for lots of non-Christian family members to come to a baptism, or a Awana night where grandparents come. Lots of unsaved come. So after we have these outreaches or any program, we then go over it. How can we improve that? What did we do wrong? There's nothing worse than repeating the same errors year after year after year after year. You develop this so people actually welcome evaluation. If you do not develop this in the life of your church, people are totally threatened by evaluation. They think you're intimidating them and criticizing them. I don't care what you're doing, it can be improved. It can always be improved. And if we're not honest with one another and talk about things openly, then we can't even help one another improve. Everyone's frightened to talk about things. Develop within your church or within the particular committee that you're a part of regular systematic evaluation. We as elders evaluate our eldership. Every 5 years we send a complete survey out. We just did it 2 years ago. Complete survey to our church. How are we doing as elders? And we ask lots and lots of questions about every aspect of our church. And every time we do this, we get surprising answers. We think we know what's going on in our church. We don't. We don't. And you get some things that hurt, and it does hurt. I'd rather them tell us than them talk behind our backs, and at least we know. And then we have to get back to them. That's another important point. When people come to you and they have something to say to you or they have a complaint, always get back to them. Don't just say, oh, we'll talk about that, and then that's the last thing. I hear this all the time. People say, I sent a letter to our leaders, or I talked to some of our leaders about this problem. They never get back to me. If you're a group of leaders and someone has made a complaint or someone has written a letter or someone has come in and talked to you, remember this, we need to get back to them as soon as we can. Let's deal with this and get back to them. I've heard this so many times, it's like a broken record. Well, we mentioned this problem, this issue that we're having, and no one ever gets back to us. Well, that's just fear. So easy to fall into a rut, to do little when in fact there's much to do, to stop learning when there's yet much to learn, to stop growing when there's much growth ahead. Learn to practice this in your own life. Do not be afraid of evaluation. Do not be afraid of good critiques. It's the best thing for you. Yes, it hurts, but you'll improve. If you're a preacher, if you're a teacher, and you can get evaluation, it's a wonderful thing. For example, we have Sunday night classes. They're elective classes at the church. At the end of every class, there's an evaluation form, and that helps the teacher. And you don't have to put your name on it, and they hand it to the elders, and we go over it. If there's any big problems, we'll address that. Little problems, we give them the evaluation and let them handle it. But then every teacher can improve their class. So I want you to emphasize this point. I want you to go over this point later. The importance of regular evaluation of your ministry and of the responsibilities that you have. If you're with a group, let's say you're the head of a college group, and you've got a team that leads the college group, at least once every several months, as a team of college leaders, sit down and evaluate. How are we doing? Maybe you want to get the whole group together and evaluate.